It's really something, isn't it? Just when you think you've got a handle on your digital security, the whole landscape just shifts again.
Yeah, it really does. It underlines why you just can't stand still.
Exactly. You've got to keep understanding what's next, especially with these tools, the ones we use every single day.
Absolutely. A static defense, well, it's basically like leaving the door open these days. The attackers, they're just so adaptable.
Mhm.
And what they're doing now with Microsoft 365, it's a prime example.
Hmm?
We need to unpack it, what they're up to, and crucially, how you can actually defend against it.
And that's exactly what we're doing today, a deep dive into these, well, pretty critical new attack methods hitting Microsoft 365, and maybe more importantly, the actual steps you can take.
Yeah, we're looking at real-world activity, what's actually happening out there, and then mapping that to the best practices, the countermeasures you need.
We want to understand these evolving tactics, especially this trend around abusing legitimate Microsoft authentication, right?
That's the core of it. And then connecting that directly to practical advice, how you can manage the risk.
Okay. And speaking of managing risk and protection, this deep dive is supported by Stonefly. They're leaders in enterprise storage, backup, disaster recovery, AI storage, cloud solutions, the whole package.
Right.
So if you're looking for really secure, like ransomware-proof storage, think air-gapped, immutable solutions, you should check them out. Just email sales@stonefly.com to set up a demo.
Good resource to have.
Definitely. Okay, so let's get right into it. These new attack vectors. What are we actually seeing?
Well, what's really standing out is this pivot towards exploiting trust,
Mhm.
specifically messing with standard authentication flows like OAuth 2.0.
Co-op 2.0. That's the thing that lets apps talk to each other for you without you having to share your password everywhere.
Exactly. It's designed for security and convenience, but they're twisting it. We've seen a big jump in this attributed to, well, pretty sophisticated state-linked groups since early March, really.
Okay, so how do they turn that trusted process against you? What's the mechanism?
It's often social engineering. They're not just brute forcing passwords. They're using platforms like WhatsApp or Signal.
Hmm. Outside of the usual corporate channels, then.
Yeah, makes it feel more personal, maybe bypasses some email filtering. They'll pretend to be, say, European political figures, maybe Ukrainian diplomats,
Wow.
using the current situation in Ukraine as a hook, like
Yeah.
invitation to a private video meeting about Ukraine. It sounds urgent, important.
That's disturbingly believable, yeah. So they make contact. Then what? How does that lead to access?
Two main tactics we're seeing. One is they literally try to convince you to just hand over a Microsoft authorization code.
Just ask for it.
Yeah, or trick you into thinking it's part of a legitimate process. The other way is sending you a malicious OAuth phishing link. You click it, it looks like a Microsoft login, but it's designed to grab your credentials and, crucially, those one-time access codes.
Okay, and if someone does get tricked into sharing that authorization code, what happens immediately? What can the attacker do?
Right, so with that code, they can generate their own access tokens. Think of them like digital keys.
Okay.
These tokens let them act as the user within the account. And, maybe even more worrying, sometimes they can register new devices to the victim's Microsoft Entra ID.
Register their device on your account.
Pretty much. It's like adding their own laptop to your company's list of trusted machines. Gives them a persistent way in.
That sounds, yeah, that's serious, more than just temporary access.
Exactly. And we saw one case, it was particularly sneaky. The attackers started the conversation using a compromised email account from the Ukrainian government.
Oh, wow. So the first contact looks completely legitimate.
Totally. Makes the follow-up message on WhatsApp or Signal seem much more trustworthy, doesn't it?
Definitely lowers your guard.
Oh.
Do we know, like, the technical specifics? What URLs are they using? Is it obviously fake?
Well, that's the tricky part. In that campaign, they used a legitimate Microsoft login URL. It's login.microsoftonline.com/common OAuth to authorize.
So it looks real because it is real.
Yes, but they add specific parameters to it, parameters that interact with Microsoft Teams and, importantly, the device registration service. So when they get that authorization code back from the victim,
Use it to register their device.
bingo, they link their machine right into the victim's Microsoft 365 setup.
Yeah.
It's fundamentally adding an unauthorized endpoint.
So the goal isn't just a quick peek, it's getting that persistent connection, like a backstage pass.
You got it. But even then, there's often another hurdle. MFA, multi-factor authentication.
Right, the second factor point.
Exactly. So what we see is after registering the device, the attacker often still needs to socially engineer the victim. They need you to approve that allow notification on your phone
Right.
or authenticator app.
Ah, so it's another layer of manipulation.
If they succeed there, then they can access the emails, the files, whatever they're after, and download it using that device they just registered.
It's quite a chain of events, all relying on tricking the person at each stage. It's unnerving how they use the security systems against themselves.
It really is.
You mentioned device code phishing earlier. Is that still a thing, or have they moved on?
It's still out there, yeah. Velexity reported on it back in February. It seems like some of these Russian actors pivoted towards this OAuth abuse more recently, maybe saw it as more effective. But device code phishing is definitely still a technique to watch out for.
And the common thread seems to be using Microsoft's own infrastructure.
That's the key problem. They aren't usually setting up fake websites that might get flagged easily. They're not using obviously malicious OAuth apps that require scary-looking consent screens. It all looks legitimate on the surface.
Which makes detection so much harder. They're hiding in plain sight.
Pretty much.
Okay, this is concerning. So given this, what are the absolute must-do security practices? What does Microsoft say we need right now?
Foundationally, multi-factor authentication, MFA. For everyone, no exceptions.
No.
Especially administrators.
Not a question.
Microsoft offers security defaults, which is a good starting point. It turns on basic MFA. But honestly, for organizations facing these kinds of targeted attacks, you really need to dig into conditional access policies.
Conditional access. So setting specific rules.
Exactly. Think of it like setting smart rules. Who can access what, from where, from what kind of device, and maybe only if certain conditions are met. It's much more granular.
MFA is table stakes. What about those admin accounts? They're the high-value targets.
Absolutely critical. First, minimize the number of global admins. Just fewer keys to the kingdom.
Makes sense.
Use separate dedicated accounts for admin tasks. Don't use your day-to-day email account for global admin stuff.
Right. Limit exposure.
Ideally, these admin accounts should be cloud-only, not synced from your on-premise Active Directory, if possible. And obviously, enforce strong MFA on them. Passwordless, even better. It's all about layers around those critical accounts.
Got it. Layers and separation. What about the basics? Spam filters, anti-phishing, are they still important against these fancier attacks?
Oh, definitely. Don't neglect the basics because there's a new shiny threat. These OAuth attacks are serious, but you're still getting bombarded with regular phishing, malware.
Yeah, the everyday noise.
Right. So Microsoft Defender for Office 365 use the preset security policies. They give you strong anti-spam, anti-malware, anti-phishing. Make sure things like safe links and safe attachments are turned on.
Safe links spans URLs, safe attachments, detonates attachments in a sandbox.
Exactly. They catch a lot of the common stuff before it even reaches your users. It reduces the overall noise and risk.
Good point. Now, these attacks often involve getting unauthorized devices involved. How do we control device access, especially personal devices, bring your own devices scenarios?
That's a huge piece of this.
Yeah.
SharePoint and OneDrive has controls specifically for unmanaged devices, personal laptops, phones, anything not enrolled in your management system.
Okay, what can we do?
You can block access entirely from unmanaged devices. Or a common approach is to limit access to browser only, meaning they can view files in the web browser, but they can't download, print, or sync files using the OneDrive client. It significantly cuts down the risk of data ending up on a potentially compromised personal machine.
That seems like a good balance in some cases. Browser access, but no local copies?
It can be. But you need to know, implementing this relies on those Microsoft Entra conditional access policies we mentioned.
It's all connected.
Yep. And these policies apply tenant-wide across all your locations. Also really important, if you do restrict unmanaged devices like this, you should also block access from older apps that don't use modern authentication.
Why is that?
Because some older protocols, like legacy email clients, might be able to bypass those device restrictions. It's like locking the front door but leaving a window open.
Gotcha. Close that loophole. Okay, so preventing, but what about detecting these attacks if they get through? Any specific alerts we should set up?
Yes, absolutely. The Microsoft Defender portal is your friend here. You need to configure alert policies to watch for suspicious activity.
Like what?
Things like someone suddenly getting Exchange admin privileges when they shouldn't, or unusual amounts of file sharing, especially externally, or spikes in users clicking links that Safe Links flags as malicious.
Standard security monitoring stuff. But anything specific to these OAuth attacks?
Yeah, there are a couple of more specific things. One is to look for logins using a particular client. It's ABC6443 996D 45C2 90388F96FA5. That's associated with Visual Studio Code. which these attackers have used.
Okay.
Combine that cliented with logins where the resource being accessed is Microsoft Graph. Now, caveat, this can generate false positives because developers use VS Code legitimately, so you'll need to tune it.
Right, needs context. What else?
Monitor for newly registered devices in your Entra ID. That's a big one, given the attack chain we discussed.
See when a new device pops up unexpectedly.
Exactly. And then correlate that registration event with the IP address it came from. Is it a known bad IP? Is it coming from a TOR exit node or a cheap VPS often used by attackers? That correlation is key.
That sounds very actionable. So we're alerting, but can we be more proactive in stopping that unauthorized device registration altogether?
Yes. Back to conditional access. A really strong move is to create policies that only allow access to your resources from devices that are known and managed by your organization, or explicitly compliant with your security policies. Basically, if the device isn't trusted, it doesn't get in.
Block by default unless trusted.
Pretty much. And building on that, some researchers, like Volexity, recommend considering blocking device code authentication entirely through conditional access. Just shut down that whole method if you don't explicitly need it.
Okay. A more aggressive stance on that specific vector.
Can be very effective if it fits your environment.
And all these technical controls. They're great, but the human element is still massive here, isn't it, with the social engineering?
Absolutely massive. You cannot forget user training. Your people are on the front lines. They need to understand email best practices, how to spot phishing, especially these kinds of attacks that ask for codes or prompt for unexpected logins.
Training them on these specific tactics, not just generic phishing.
Yes. Make it relevant. Explain why giving away that code is dangerous, what an OAuth prompt should look like versus a suspicious one. It's about building that security awareness culture.
So it's really that blend. Strong technical controls like MFA and conditional access, plus savvy users who can spot the manipulation.
That's the goal. And there are other pieces too, of course, like double-checking your SharePoint and OneDrive sharing settings. Don't let sensitive data leak out accidentally.
Good point. Basic hygiene.
Manage calendar sharing permissions too.
Yeah.
And just general good practice. Promptly removing users who leave, cleaning up old devices. It all adds up.
Continuous effort. And just a reminder for everyone listening, if you're thinking about bolstering your defenses, especially around data resilience, Stonefly offers those secure, ransomware-proof storage solutions, air-gapped, immutable, worth checking out at sales@stonefly.com.
Definitely worth looking into for that peace of mind.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The big picture seems to be this clear, quite worrying trend of sophisticated attacks, likely state-linked, going after Microsoft 365.
Yes, specifically abusing legitimate processes like OAuth, which makes them stealthier. And they're relying heavily on social engineering, manipulating trust.
And the defense really comes down to being proactive. Implementing those Microsoft best practices is non-negotiable.
Absolutely. MFA for everyone, using conditional access intelligently to control who and what gets access, and setting up those specific alerts in Defender to catch the signs of these attacks.
Vigilance seems key. Continuously monitoring, adapting your defenses, and crucially, keeping your users educated and aware.
It's an ongoing battle, unfortunately. No set it and forget it in cybersecurity.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. These attacks are getting smarter, right? They're designed to slip past old defenses by exploiting trust and legitimate systems. So the question is, what proactive steps, maybe even unconventional ones, are you taking right now to make sure your Microsoft 365 setup can actually withstand these advanced social engineering tactics? It's probably time to go beyond just a review, really stress test those configurations, and make sure your user training is truly preparing people for these more nuanced threats.